get me a drink that doesn't taste of violets. This is disgusting.
It's like, oh, damn.
She's like choking back this disgusting drink while he's like, yeah. Secret agent voice activated. The deal is off. Quack.
Welcome to the Little Duck Book Club with Duck number 1.
Ren and duck number 2.
Anna. And we just came back from our summer vacation, which you're gonna hear this in like autumn or something. But know that the summer break that you had to suffer through was well enjoyed by us.
We had such a good time. We had such a good time.
Just know that. And we had an even better time. At least I had a really good time. I don't know about you, because the book that I read, which we're going to talk about now, is A Memory Called Empire by, and I'm going to butcher this name, Arkady Martine? Arkady?
I don't know. I would say this Arkady Martine, but I don't know.
You see,
I just live in peace knowing that when Americans try to pronounce German words, it sounds like salad. So, like, you know, I don't feel bad about it. I don't feel like I should be doing better.
We're just giving back, you know? Sharing is caring.
This is cultural exchange. Now you know how the other half lives.
Which is oddly enough very on brand for the book. Let me check when it came out. It's part of a duology, and we've only read the first one.
I'm so excited. What's it called? For A Desolation Called Peace.
Me too. Okay, I guess we're both excited. This one came out in 2019.
Yeah, it's fairly recent.
Fairly recent. The second one is even more recent.
As second books tend to be.
Roughly, what is it about? Do you want to give us a little pointer into what is the book about?
Sure.
I can also do it if you don't want to.
Caught unawares, we're like, what are we even doing here?
What are you talking about?
Yeah, A Memory Called Empire is a sci-fi half mystery, I would call it. There is some mystery aspects, but
it's not mainly a mystery.
Not that focused on it.
Yeah.
It's not trying to be. We follow our main character, Mahit Demare, who is an ambassador from a small station in space to the big empire, which is the Texkalani Empire. And she comes to the capital because the previous ambassador is out of contact, and it's unclear what happened to him until she arrives and is presented with his corpse, which is not great for her. She's not having a great time.
It's like the first thing they're doing. They're like,
you
arrived? Great.
She arrived, and before they're even like handing her a visa or anything, they're like, hey, you need to come with us to the justice building, to the morgue. We have something to show you. And she's like, oh, this is not great. This is not going how I planned. But yeah, she's there in the heart of the empire, trying to both represent her home station and trying to keep it independent, as well as trying to figure out what happened to the previous ambassador, and also getting caught up in all the other schemes that are currently happening at court, because there are some questions of, you know, who's gonna be in power next, because the current emperor is old as shit and about to die, and no one's quite, like, there are successors planned, but it's not exactly a stable situation.
It's a complicated situation, yeah. The succession
also
game.
Called a clusterfuck, yeah. It's not great, especially not for a new ambassador.
And the worst thing is that the previous ambassador was such a messy bitch. That
he was. It's amazing.
I love it. Mahit is now kind of in a very uncomfortable position. So as soon as an empire kind of starts to, as they say, integrate or welcome a new society into their grateful warm arms, they kind of start to also integrate all of the technology that these other cultures have, and they kind of bulldoze it with their own poetry and literature and everything. And one thing that Mahit's station has as technology, which is like super amazing, a little bit frowned upon it would be in Takes Kalan, but on the station it's normal, is they have these imago machines, which are like little, I think, ceramic plates that they have at the back of their head at the brainstem that include memories and also kind of sort of a voice, a consciousness of the people before them that were recorded on these chips. They have these long imago lines, and the like rule number one for Mahit is don't let that information get out there. It's the one thing that gives us cutting edge to everybody else. It's the one reason why we've been able to survive that long, that well, how we prospered. No go. And she comes there to the Empire, and she thinks she has, like, she's a couple of steps ahead of everybody, and it turns out she's not, because her imago isn't working properly, and literally everybody, I would say, knows about that machine, who's kind of in power and important.
I was about to say everyone in a position of power who would, you know, usually not be told this unless you were trading for any other benefits. And they all already know because the previous ambassador, as stated, was a little bit of a messy little guy.
He went to every single person.
Yeah, I would say before we get too far into it, though, like, I would recommend reading it first.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
I think...
I always forget that we have to say that.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say this for every book. There are a lot of books where I would say it doesn't really matter if you have spoilers because that's not important. But I also think the experience of reading it is enhanced by not already, like, having a somewhat contextual knowledge of a lot of things. Because the way they're presented, it's such a good book that it feels like a disservice to tell someone about all the, like, world building and character beats before they could read it.
It's true. It feels
because
like...
we could never do it better.
Yeah.
You know?
I recently saw that some people were like, oh, yeah, it feels like books don't invite you anymore, invite you into their world. It feels like you get, like, cookie cutter pieces of a story that you'd like to read. But with this one, it felt like I was invited into this empire, into this sci-fi world in such a nice and, like, very well-structured way. It was like a fun little journey through it. So I agree with you. You should get that invitation from the book and not from us. That introduction. Because it truly felt like it was just like, oh, yeah, cool. This place exists somewhere, I guess. Because it would then that
yeah, no, it's a good book, which is why you should read it.
Yeah, I know we tend to be negative, but
we do talk a lot about books that are absolutely not worth it, and that I would say, please don't do this to yourself. But for this, I would say, please do this to yourself. Please do.
I'd say especially, I went in completely blind with this one. I mean, I read the blurbs and all of that, but I didn't
even read the blurb. I've seen so many, like, I've seen so many recommendations, glowing recommendations that have talked about, like, what kind of book it is, but I don't ever remember having any kind of clue what the plot is actually about. Yeah. So I was delighted the moment I found out that there was a somewhat murder mystery aspect to it, because I love those. So
you wrote me a message.
Dude, really? That's amazing.
I even forgot about the blurb. I read it, I forgot it. I picked up the book at the bookstore, I turned it around, and I was like, oh, right. This was what this was about. So try to go in with only what you've heard right now. It pains me to say this, but stop the video. Leave. Get the book.
Leave.
Read it.
Come back in, like, 10 hours when you've read it.
Yeah, you won't take longer. You won't be able to put it down. So
I would also say that the beginning of my blurb, in a war of lies, she seeks the truth, is just not really applicable to the book. This isn't a war of lies. People aren't doing information warfare. There's just, jockeying for power going on. And obviously, people have secrets, but I would not describe it as a war of lies.
They're all being shockingly honest.
Honestly, yeah, a lot of people in this are so straightforward in parts where I'm like, dude, really? You're just telling us this? Crazy.
But it was kind of refreshing because it also...
Yeah, no, it was like it was great.
That's always connected to a sort of power trip. The fact that you think you can just say that because you're like, the other person won't survive the next week anyways.
I mean, we also, like, literally have the scene where, what is it, Tenpro just tells Mahit, yeah, I killed him. So what, you can't do anything about it.
Yeah.
Like, you know this now.
That was insane.
No one will care that you know this, because anyone who's more powerful than me doesn't give a shit, or was in favor of it. Good luck.
I know we're jumping all over the place, but in that scene, I love that he did not only say that, but he was like, yeah, and 19 ads they watch.
Yeah, 19 ads watched it.
He just dropped
Take that. Honestly, so many people in this are messy bitches. It's really, really, really funny.
Honestly, I think the only critique I have for this book, is that it didn't have more of the things I liked. That's the only thing.
Wow.
I really...
That's scathing. Tearing this book apart with such harsh words.
That's the only thing. I would have wished... So, I'm going to try to be somewhat chronologically. In the beginning, we get introduced to Iskander, who was the previous ambassador, who's Mahit's imago, and she has an outdated version, 15 years outdated.
Yeah.
And I loved him. I thought it was such an interesting concept to actually get to see the concept instead of being talked about. I really like that. The way that she, like, drops her luggage to greet 3 Seagrass because, you know, he kind of takes over her body, and all of that, so much fun. And then he kind of whisked out a little bit too early for me. I would have wished for a little bit more time with my guy. Because
I do understand that he is so funny. I love him.
I know.
He's my poor little meow meow. I love him. However, it is necessary because we need Mahit to not have information, and we need her to be in the worst position she could possibly be in for, like, the plot to be really engaging. But I do agree. I love him. He is so funny.
I think it would have been so funny for him to drop out in a moment that was even worse. You know, like, I mean, that was already seeing your own corpse pretty shocking. But in a situation where she desperately needed his information, that would have been fun. Because in that instance, she was, like, trying just to keep up a conversation. And she was already emotionally, like, bracing for something to happen when she sees his corpse. But it would have been so funny if it happened, like, during a conversation with 90 Nuts, for example. Just him winking out and she goes, ah! I think that would have been really fun. And... on the one other thing I would have loved a little bit more, which is also, like, part of the conclusion of the story, is I would have liked to see a little bit more dread surrounding the aliens from somewhere of the void coming. Because I was like, oh, cool.
From a galaxy far, far away.
We've got this weird spherical ship, and, like, the noises are weird. We can't establish any communication. It's fucked up. They're killing our pilots. It's the one reason that in the end the Empire is able to say, oh, hey, we shouldn't do this civil war now. We should head off and do something else. And I would have liked a little bit more dread. Because I on the one hand, it's basically, I thought about it, it's basically the plot from Mass Effect, but on the other hand, it's just, I like it. I like a little bit of existential dread from multiple directions. And I like aliens. I mean, what can I say?
I get where you're coming from, but it's also just not what the book is about.
I know.
I think obviously because the sequel will have to deal with them.
Yeah, especially that. That's why I said
there is a point, but also the book is ultimately about somebody who's, you know, trained to be an ambassador. Of course, she is not informed on this.
Yeah, of
right?
course.
Like, she wouldn't be.
Yeah.
So the fact that we hear about it at all is already, like...
I know. That's why I said it's like... In German you would say it's Krümelkackerei, right?
Yeah.
It's like the the smallest little kernels.
It's not even das Tüpfelchen auf dem I. It's even like a smaller complaint, you know? It's like
the sprinkles.
Das I ist bereits getüpfelt, but like, you know.
Yeah. And especially because the second book is about that alien invasion, and it's about.
But I also don't assume the book will be that much about that, honestly.
I only read the blurb.
Summary.
Yeah.
Like, I understand that it's in the blurb, but I would assume, and I would also prefer, that it continues as being a political intrigue novel. Because, like, it would be strange if the second book was this different from the first one. Because... yeah, sure, there is an alien threat, but also that's not why we're here, right? Like, that's not what the books are about. Yeah. So I assume that's not even gonna be that much of a focus. So I
know. I hope. Okay. My hope is still there.
You're like, I like aliens.
I just love this trope of like you have this big multi-century political power that's been existing for such a long time, and then you have this other thing just coming along and completely like bombing any plan that whatever political agent had in that big thing, because you know shit just happens, and then people have to, this is very sappy, people have to unite. I love that. So, yeah. But that's my only critique. So from now on, I'm only gonna say positive.
I'm only gonna say positive things.
10 minutes later.
Yeah, I will say, I guess, I mean, we can also talk about this later, but my main point of critique, which is also, it's not really a detriment to the story, but I feel like there is a certain, I don't know, blindness to it, is that this book is like this unabashedly horny about the Imperial Core and existing in the Imperial Core without really ever in any meaningful way addressing what happens on the periphery, right? Because
I was surprised by that.
The stationers, the people Mahit comes from, are already wealthy and influential enough to not immediately be absorbed into the Empire, but to have an ambassador and have certain trading rights without being absorbed. So they're already in a privileged position anyway. But otherwise, we just hear on the news or as like a fun conversation piece that there are riots in some of the periphery, that, you know, regularly there are some border skirmishes where places are annexed, you know. We don't know, like, the worst thing we see is Belltown 5, which is still affluent and nice. It's just not the palace level decadent. We don't see what it's like for the space equivalent of what India was while it was occupied by the British Empire, you know? We don't see, like, the actual filth and destruction which is necessary to maintain, like, the golden, glimmering Imperial Core, especially because both the book and our point of view characters are so horny over the people living in the Imperial Core and holding power, which is, like, I feel like I would have liked to have more of the juxtaposition of the actual horror that Texcalan is because it exists, you know? I feel like that wasn't really in there, which I do understand. Like, political intrigue is the most interesting and fun if you play it as, you know, if you play it at the highest positions of power, because those are influential and those are meaningful. And the people there are all crazy and weird, which makes it fun. But also, all of that comes at a price, which I feel like this doesn't talk about at all. Because, let's be real, the worst thing that would happen to the stationers is a sort of, you know, like, cultural imperialism. Like, they wouldn't be slaughtered or whatever. They would just, you know, feel less independent and have less of their own art and culture, and they'd have to assimilate, but it's not the worst thing that can happen. Right?
Yeah, I mean, at some point, I agree with you. At some point, Mahit is like, oh, she can't let the station be, like, colonized by Teixkalan because she thinks about a younger brother who would be snatched away to go to, I think, military camp or something, because that's what they do with the young kids.
Yeah.
But, yeah, in terms of that, there wouldn't be, like, a genocide or anything of the station, because
you
they're
cannot
being
tell me
annexed,
Teixkalan doesn't like sustain itself by, you know, resource extraction, which is borderline or just straight up slavery in its periphery. Like, you can't tell me this.
Especially
so
because
whatever
of
would
the-
happen to
yeah.
the stations is like, okay, yeah, you're losing your way of life, and cultural genocide is also bad and terrible when it happens.
Yeah.
But this is also not the terrible thing that could happen to you if you were not, you know, as technologically advanced as you are. Because I bet you there are places that weren't and that were taken over in a much less, you know, friendly way. Let's put it like that.
I think especially, I thought that might come into play after she was at the, what was it, this where she got initiated by the emperor, and there was this poetry contest, like the oration or something that they were in.
Yeah.
When she gets talked to by an ambassador of another, like, newly included world. I thought we might get some of that there on, again, the political intrigue level, because they wouldn't show it to us, obviously, but the political intrigue level, but that kind of just disappeared. It was more there to show a certain different kind of view that somebody might have, who didn't have the privileges that Mahit has because of Iskander.
It really is just a scene to show like Mahit's superiority complex over people who are less good than her at their job or in their circumstances, which was really funny.
She's
I was like, Mahit, dude, you're not.
I love that whole, like, all of the scenes, that whole happening a lot in terms of also information about Mahit, how she thinks, how she holds herself, the whole I'm not like takes Kalanli, but I also don't really feel like I'm from Lozelle Station, but at the same time I am from the station, and I don't want to be takes Kalanli. It was interesting to look into that, like the, what would you call it? The pitch perfect poetry session that they have, where they say a word or phrase, and then the other person has to take the last word and make it the first word.
Yeah, no.
I could not stop thinking about the pool scene.
I was like,
Perfect.
this was like this is the bougie version of a rap battle. I felt like I was like, we're doing.
It's like the Barton Bellas come and like spew some beats, you know.
Yeah, I was like, damn, yeah, we're doing this.
And the way she's standing there, and she has a whole existential crisis about never being able to, like, be included in that, because she's just a mere, what did she say? She's like an imitation of the real thing, and all of her learning vocabulary will never reach the point. It was interesting. She's also drunk, right? She leaves right after.
It's fascinating because obviously that's like a huge defining part of her character, and that she is in love with this alien to her, at least somewhat, culture, and has, as far as she's able to, in this like months of high speed interstellar travel time, you know, she's tried to immerse herself as much as she could in this culture, but comparatively, she still feels like she can only ever fall short. But it's also really funny because the people she's, you know, feeling like, I could never be as good as them. I'm like, yeah, you're watching like some of the best poets in this society have their epic poetry slam contest. I bet you like 90% of people living on Teixkalan also can't do this. Like, I promise you, this isn't really that much on you. These people are just especially good at
I loved the shade when I forgot his name, not the good poet, but another one wins the contest because he said something so controversial. And Mahit's like, gosh, but she was such an amateur. And I'm like, Mahit, that person still managed to be in this contest in front of the emperor. Like, girl.
Yeah, but down. I do also get it. This is it is the equivalent of watching people online act as if Taylor Swift is the greatest poet and, you know, lyrical artist to ever exist when you know this isn't true. It's like, yeah, this isn't terrible. It's inoffensive. It's fine. Yeah. But it's also not deserving of winning a competition of coolest poem presented today. You know? It's like...
Coolest poem presented today. Yeah, that was kind of the competition they had there.
Which it was really funny.
I also expected the poem to be longer. I think it's like 5 lines or something.
Yeah, it's not long.
Presents there, and it's ridiculous how short it is.
I suppose does make sense if you're having a public oration contest. There probably are limits to how long you're supposed to make it. And also, if, you know, you want to stand out, it's a lot more impressive to pack a lot into a short poem than to recite, like, a 70-line poem with the same meaning.
Here I have it. It's 4 lines. 9 Mays was the guy's name.
9 Mays, yeah.
That was interesting. 9 Mays was one of the few characters we got introduced to who's not... takes Kalan Lit's limb visually. It's like a blonde dude with blue hair, blue eyes, and like pale skin and shit. I think he's the only one we meet, right?
I think he is, but also I do think like it is heavily implied that, you know, I mean, he still is takes Kalan Lit's limb. Yeah. He's just not, he just doesn't have the, you know, capital look about him, I guess, like the, you know, the
ethnicity is,
he's ethnically, like, looks like he's not from the main planet but somewhere from the periphery where it's like not as warm,
where it was colder, and so he has to have a different... I loved the way that she tried to kind of, you know, be like, he's Swedish. Just throw that in there.
I mean,
yeah.
This does not only happen in Europe. There is a documented gradient of melanin content in skin that you can just map the, you know, the climate zones onto. It's very funny. It's like you look at it and you're like, yeah, damn, it does look like this. That's great.
It's like piccometers, you know. It's like a little gradient in there. Okay, yeah, but it's... I don't know where I want to start. There's a lot of things.
Yeah, I was about to say, do you want to go through talking points or characters? Because I feel like...
Maybe we've already been talking about Mahit. I feel like we could continue there. I liked in the beginning that you don't even get to know what she looks like. All you know is that she's taller than the others and she's like the barbarian. And then later you find out, she's just a ginger, you know, and that's like apparently scary enough for some people. I love that. I really liked her as a main character. She was sufficiently annoyed by things, but also very human. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's also... This will sound a little bit mean, but unlike a lot of bad books, and also unlike a lot of YA, Mahit is actually prepared and fitting for her job. She is exactly... She has the correct competencies for her problems, which end up being much larger scale than she would assume at first, but she is actually suited to the role she is given.
Yeah, she's
which
prepared.
Is very nice and refreshing after reading something like The Bridge King, which is, it's such... this is so inappropriate to compare because Memory Called Empire deserves much better. Like, it's a highly acclaimed contemporary sci-fi genre fiction book that's like, you know, widely known to be good, and the other one is like self-published romantasy schlock that's not, you know.
It's that the thing of her being prepared, very refreshing. The fact that she got a couple of months to like get used to Iskandir, integrate together, also very appreciated, because then we can immediately start with how is it supposed to be when
and also it feels more meaningful when she misses him, because of it's like, oh, she got him 3 days ago. Like, how much could you miss somebody, right? Like,
yeah. But they've spent some time, and she also misses him a lot, especially after she gets the other Iskandir. She's like, oh damn, I miss my other dude. No offense, because you're the same person, but I do miss my other dude. Yeah.
She's like, well, I liked 25-year-old you a lot better, because he wasn't this much of a cunt. He didn't cause all my problems already.
But yeah, I really liked her. I liked her humor, kind of.
Yeah,
I love that she used cultural differences on purpose as a weapon. The smiling, I was shitting myself all the time when she was like, just gonna smile.
Yeah, I love that she's so good at what she does. Mm-hmm. It's so fun to be in her head and watch her do stuff. Because it's really just like, what else could she do, you know? And that's like...
Honestly, she's like, all the other people going, oh, you didn't sleep any hours, or you must be stressed. And she's like, yeah. What do you want me to do?
Imagine, dude, I love looking at it. Like, imagine you're Mahit Zamari. You are, against all odds, chosen as ambassador to a country you have been obsessed with since you were a small child. This is the chance of a lifetime. Or maybe not even a lifetime, maybe even like several lifetimes. You got so lucky. And then the universe conspires so that everything possible that could go wrong goes wrong, and it ends up in an insane, huge clusterfuck that you could not have predicted even 2 weeks earlier. I think it's also funny to just imagine the timeline, because this book spans like maybe 1.5 weeks at most.
It's not a lot.
It's not a lot of time, but so much goes wrong all the time. Like, so many independent factors. You have the dangerous aliens coming from outside of known space.
Yeah.
Who are slowly making their menacing way closer and closer to her home, which she doesn't know about. She has an ambassador who has done some of the worst shit imaginable and also hasn't sent a record home in 15 years. Your imago is 15 years out of date. It's all you're getting. At least you have something. But no, it turns out somebody else, for unrelated reason, sabotaged your imago. Which then means your life is much harder than it ought to have been, because you can't decipher your own mail without help. You don't know codes you ought to be knowing. It means at some point you have to get experimental brain surgery from somebody who's never done this before. Then you happen to arrive as an ambassador at a time when succession is in question, when not 1 but 2 coup attempts are done inside the capital where you are, while people are trying to kill you personally.
And professionally, all.
That's true. On every level, you are so fucked. Somebody comes into your home threatening you. You have to kill them, then you get kicked out. You can't even use your ambassadorial suite because you keep getting kicked out.
First, you're being taken as a prisoner.
You don't even have your own clothes. You have to keep sleeping in other people's houses and borrowing their clothes. Everything goes wrong. It's amazing. Like, her life sucks so bad. Look at it. It's
honestly, it's no wonder that Mehi doesn't sleep a lot, because she's like, I can't even sleep at my own place. Like, I constantly have to sleep at
it's
other
no
people.
wonder she doesn't sleep, because every time she sleeps, something else goes wrong. Like, at the end, she wakes up, the news tells them One Lightning has started sending troops to the main planet. Cool. Normal. Great.
I loved when somebody again is like, oh yeah, you didn't get enough sleep, did you? And she in her head is like, well, I slept then. And technically it counts if I was knocked out. And Iskander's like, no, it doesn't, girly. You were knocked out.
No,
like,
this literally is not restful sleep. It does not count.
Yeah, those were drugs. Yeah, she's so refreshing in a way, because she doesn't, like, of course she, like, she thinks about what's happening, right? And she's like panicking a little tiny bit about it, but at the same time she has such a refreshing, well, gotta do what you gotta do.
She's a go-getter.
Her.
She's like, my despair is gone the moment I have any kind of plan.
Yeah.
Is the plan good? Is it detailed? No. Will it work?
Yeah.
We have no idea, but we have steps we can follow, so we're gonna get going.
I also love as soon as she knows that her she's not a bodyguard. She's like they say political liaison.
Yeah,
like
her cultural liaison.
Yeah, cultural liaison. Like her advisor. As soon as that one has a plan, she's like, yeah, okay, tell me. You want me to do what? Jump off a bridge?
3 Seagrass, you have ideas? I have none, so let's do this. No matter if it's good or bad, we gotta be doing.
We're doing things, we're walking in circles. You want me to eat ice cream and sleep?
We are not reacting, we are acting. Are the actions good? Time will tell. But
she's so great. And I also love that, and a lot of times she just she uses the fact that she's not native and that she has those privileges to get away with the most crazy shit. Like, and 3 Seagrass sitting next to her is like, oh my god, what are you doing? She's like, no, trust me. I'm crazy. And they know, so I can get away with this.
Yeah, it's like, you know I'm a rational person, but they don't know. They think I'm a barbarian. I could do anything.
Yeah.
3 Seagrass is like, please don't.
She's like, let's not expand too much on that.
It's amazing. I love it. Mehi is such a good character.
Truly such a fun.
She's also so aware of her own biases. Yeah. She's like, I don't really have a good reason to trust 3 Seagrass right now, but I literally have no other choices and I need to trust somebody.
Yeah.
So I gotta. It's
like,
all I'm getting.
I need a friend, okay?
Yeah,
this one's job is to be my friend. Yeah, no, I love her as a character, and I love, if we want to beeline to the next character, I love in contrast, or not in contrast, I love as an addition 3 Seagrass as like the little very competent, no bullshit, but also kind of sometimes a little bit fiery companion, walking along.
I think there is no character which I dislike on a writing level. Obviously, there's somewhere I'm like, oh, this is not sympathetic. But like, on a writing level, there is no character where I'm like, oh, I don't like. I love all of them. Mm-hmm. They're all good and fun and interesting. I love 3 Seagrass is so fun too, because very close to the beginning, we already get an introduction to herself through like a game of truths, basically, where she admits to her vainglorious ambition, which is the reason why she wanted to be a cultural liaison. And then also we found out she's an alien fucker, which is such a funny combination. It's amazing.
Oh, girl, honestly.
It's also like, she's so fun because she is very ambitious and she tries to be very focused on her work, but she's also humanized through her relationship with 12 Azalea and just her interactions with Mahit, and you just she's so realized as a person. It's very fun to watch.
I felt like because we got to see the professional side, and we also got to see the daily kind of interacting outside of that professional side. Because with her job, like the personal assistant of someone, you cannot be on your job 24/7. So there needs to be some sort of morphing of, responsibilities.
But honestly, the funniest part about her is we meet her at her most professional, well put together, and then the next 9 days happen and just it crumbles apart. We see her just get more and more disheveled over the timeline. It's very fun.
Yeah.
It's just we start with someone perfectly put together, portraying no emotion, perfectly polite, perfectly organized. We end with her sobbing into Mahit's shoulder. It's really fun. It's so interesting because, shit goes down. Of course she's insanely stressed and has a breakdown. She lives in an emotionally repressive society. Of course she ends up having a breakdown. Of course.
I love that, because you said polite. I love that in the beginning she very quickly wasn't polite anymore. She keeps up the appearance of being well trained and such. But the first chance she has, she makes fun of Mahit. It's like, oh yeah, what a shame to be so dumb, It's like, what? Excuse me. And I was like, I hope this 3 Seagrass person stays with us, because she's really funny.
She's great.
She's also so competent. That's again. Mahit is competent. 3 Seagrass, also very competent.
3 Seagrass is so insanely competent and has such good connections, and she's also so focused that she gets so much done. It's amazing.
It's like, you want to talk to the Emperor? Well, let me do it for you.
I'm getting your meeting in 24 hours, unlike the 6 months, which normally are on the timeline.
Yeah. I love that Mahit was like, the kind of billionaire kind of way that they go, oh, no, get it done. Make it happen. And 3 Seagrass like, oh yeah, I'm gonna make it happen. Already made it happen. Car is here in 10 seconds, basically.
And she does it and also keeps doing it after she's had herself electrocuted, beaten. This woman got shot. Everything has happened. She is still professional, single-mindedly gets her tasks done. This woman is
she doesn't slip as well. It's
no
constant non-slipping of a character, which it's always,
she's like a gecko. She never slips.
Just imagine it go. I appreciate and I have fun reading about characters going through a skill development, right? Like a training montage or something. But it's also so refreshing to just read about people who know what they're doing to at least a base level of being professional enough that the story can progress. Because imagine somebody who didn't have skill and already getting an audience with the Emperor is taking up half of the book.
Yeah, that's the thing. In a political intrigue novel, everyone needs to be competent.
Yeah, and I love that.
Everyone except maybe someone who inherited a position, but otherwise everyone needs to be competent. Otherwise it's not fun.
Yeah, that's true.
And everyone here is competent. Well, I don't know how competent 30 Larkspur is, but he is doing things.
I like 30 Larkspur, he was kind of...
I like him, but also he's really bad at what he's trying to do.
He gave me... that's also, I think, the vibe he was supposed to give off, but he gave me such Nepo baby vibes.
He literally is a Nepo baby.
In the way he walks around.
Literally.
And the way he plays the guy who saves the damsel in distress when she's being assaulted by this one guy. outside of the ballroom. He's like buddy with all of the poets and all of the other people and all of the youngsters, you know. But at the same time, he's like, he does politics, you know.
He does. I love that when he's trying for his coup attempt, we see Six Direction speak to 19 Aze, and they're both like, how's the stupid rebellion going? She's like, stupidly. It's amazing because they're both like, he sucks so bad. The only reason he was ever considered for you know,
the throne
co-successor is because his daddy's got money. Yeah, you know.
Yeah, I mean, he was the one to abide the rich, and that's why he's in there. I loved, honestly, that was such an, of course. But it was such, like, the realization, it did have to be spelled out for me, because I was like, oh, that's why they kept him. This, you know, if we've got someone from their camp, they won't destroy us, they will love us, so let's just keep this guy. Not just because of the money aspect, but literally because of the, a rich person is, you know, part of the co-successors. Oh my god.
It's just influence. Yeah.
I was like, oh.
He has the energy of one of those Nepo babies who has a huge Instagram account because they're also like thirst posting all the time.
Yeah, because
they happen to also be attractive.
To watch them.
He's just, he's such a socialite. It's so fun.
He posts, you know, his vacation from Sylt once a year.
Yeah.
Twice a year. Because Sylt is boring. He goes somewhere else. He goes to Ibiza. You know.
Ibiza. He's traveling everywhere, and he's like, well, anyone can really, work while traveling.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know about that one, Chief.
He like posts a picture of himself at the beach somewhere and takes Kalanli vacation area, and he's like, sometimes it is hard being co-successor, and sometimes you just gotta enjoy your free time at the beach. You poor people, you can't even see the sky with all your skyscrapers. It's hard seeing so much sky. The sky is so depressing and big. It's like, as people go, what
it takes a big mind to deal with a big sky.
What the fuck is this guy talking about?
You can just imagine him selling like insanely overpriced merch with his like purple flowers on it. You just know he's doing it.
He'd have like a perfume, like the lilac perfume,
And he has his own like
skincare routine,
prosecco or whatever that's like purple.
I loved him. Also loved how he was like, oh, this poet loves me. Poet literally comes out with
but also I love Mahit's reaction to him, and also being like, dude, can you get me a drink that doesn't taste of violets? This is disgusting.
It's like, oh damn.
She's like choking back this disgusting drink while he's like, yeah, secret agent voice activated, the deal is off. So fucking funny,
no
man.
Way. I mean, as a reader, you're like, what does he mean the deal is off? Like kind of throws you out of the loop for a little bit.
Mahit is also like, what deal?
I loved her reaction to it, and him being like, oh, like I expected worse.
I appreciate your candor, and internally she's like, what deal? What's he talking about? What else do I have to worry? What the fuck did you promise, Alexander?
And then she's gonna be like so suave. She's like, oh, I'm not prone to hysterics.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, that went over well, thank God. And he just...
Yeah, internally she's like, oh, this is fine meme, like everything is burning.
It's like coming back. the way when she what's the word? When she meets old Iskander again, it's like that meme of Community where Troy comes back with the pizza into the room and it's like on fire and there's like stuff happening everywhere. Iskander's like, the fuck? I was gone for 3 months. Like,
Iskander is like, this is a worse mess than I ever managed in 20 years. And she's like, dude, this is like 90% your mess.
And then like 95, this is just, honestly.
You fucked around and I am here to find out. I'm not loving it. Stop sowing so much, Iskander. I hate reaping.
he came to slay but not to stay, you know? It's like, at some point...
In fairness, he also reaped. He did get murdered. You know, they did kill him for being a messy little bitch.
People were like, there are gonna be consequences, and he was like, what? Then he dies.
He's like, these consequences can't catch me, and then they did.
Well, they didn't catch him, they choked him, but, you know.
Yeah. And then they watched him, you know.
I loved that when we first get introduced to him as his corpse, right?
Yeah.
And it's so obvious that he didn't just die of allergies. At some point, they're like, oh, we're sorry, what unlikely thing happened to him or something. And they word it in the way where very early in the beginning, it's already like, we know you don't believe he died of asphyxiation, okay? But, like, we can't say it out loud because the city is listening, right?
You know, it's like, we all know, so we can also just, like, pretend together. We don't need to spell it out, you know?
I kind of love that. Going to other characters.
Yeah.
At first, I didn't really know what to think of 19 Atze as a, like, how to grasp the character. You know, what kind of vibe does she give off? Is she a sponsor? Is she, like, at one point she's being called, like, a jaguar, you know, like, prancing and pouncing. I wasn't really able to get a good grip on her, which I liked, because that added to the mystery of the Ezwazwa cat. But
it was like, she has an agenda, but we can't see it yet.
Yeah. I like that in the same way where it was like, for a short moment, where is this going? Like, are we gonna stay at her place all this time, you know? Since Mahit is somewhat of a prisoner here. But I liked her as a character a lot. She was very interesting in the way that she just handles stuff. The way that she talks to Six Direction. You know, that she commands the room.
A girl boss.
I imagine that her and Six Direction when they were young must have been so fun. It's just seeing those two at the end of the book interact with each other. Because we're being told that these Ezwazwa cats are like or Ezwazwa Catlim, I think is the right word. That they're so close to Six Direction and like his little group of people, but we rarely get to see that interaction.
Yeah.
So I was happy that we got to see a little bit of it in the end of the book. But I would have liked to see more. Again, I just want to see more of the thing I like.
Yeah. It would have been interesting, but I also don't think it would have given much more insight than what we already get. I think like the time we get is so effectively utilized that more of it isn't really going to get more work done, basically. Like, it's, you know.
Especially because all the information that we need that Mahit can't get is being very well positioned in the interludes, in the 3 interludes we have. So that's very well done, I'd say.
Absolutely, yeah.
I thought a concept that I found interesting with the Imago machines, if we want to go there, was the different, how do you say, like, the different illegal or morally wrong approaches you could have to an Imago machine. Just, you know, it takes Kalan Lee thinking, no, that's just wrong in general. You shouldn't enhance yourself like that. But like the concept of who's a we, who's a you, putting old people's minds into young people, which was what Six Direction was planning on doing with the child. I like that. I like that we did get those things without taking too much drive away from the story. Because that happened in Mickey 7. The guy was so happy about his idea of clones that he had
to take a break and give you a PowerPoint rundown of what a cool idea it was.
Yeah, there were like excursions of that. And we didn't get that here, but still then, well,
Yeah, I love the Imago machines, like conceptually and also just in the way they're presented, because like good science fiction, which this is, it presents you this idea and it leaves you to your own devices to have an opinion on it. We have characters who grow up with it, who think it's normal. We have characters who look at it and are appalled because it seems so deeply transgressive and wrong. And as like a modern person, you're left to your own devices. You don't have your characters telling you, oh, this is good or this is bad. You have to argue with yourself if you think that the self should be your own and never shared, and that like this kind of influence from somebody else's memories is basically a sort of existential horror in itself, where it's like you stop being you because somebody else is like there now.
Were you done with the sentence?
Yeah, I mean,
okay. I just didn't. Oh, I just wanted to interrupt you. I especially loved it because when you said, we have people that are appalled because they're not used to it, and then we have Mahit who's like grown up with it. Also, the way in which she says it to people, in which she describes it. She's like, oh, it's a memory thing, but it's not. We're inside her head. We know it's not just a memory thing. She has a literal talking guy, like, sitting in her brain. He can share skills with her. He can share memories with her, but it's a lot more complex in the context of what 3 Seagrass, for example, wants to hear or is asking of her than, I just get a memory boost. And her doing this in the beginning is fine. She doesn't want to give away all of the secrets of an Imago and like what it entails and what it means.
Yeah.
But towards the end of it, she still does that to sort of defend her stance. And I like that she was like, I don't want to discuss this right now. I don't want to have a discussion with you. And 3 Seagrasses, we will have this discussion. We're not going to have it now, but we will have it made. Like, So I like that distinction of what does Mahit say and what have we just, witnessed how it actually works.
Yeah, I mean, I do think there's this... I think they're talking, in a sense, past each other because of the cultural differences of the perception of the individual and, like, Eunice. Because it's true, Mahit does have a lot of sense memories also and, like, reactions of her endocrine system. But she also mentions that this is unusual and shouldn't happen if it's integrated correctly, right?
Yeah,
like, she talks about that. They were in a hurry, and also, her first Xander sucks because somebody tampered with,
poor guy.
Yeah, the Imago machine. So it's already like off the Ritz, but also it also is entirely understandable from her point of view that she doesn't perceive it as particularly different from a memory boost, because really she still has a strong sense of self that differentiates itself from Iskander's opinion and his thoughts, because they're still, like, othered, and her reactions are also like, okay, this isn't me. But obviously, we also know from her that with time and integration,
she's able to
become more unified, and it's a lot less, like, othering. But there it's also like, okay, but that can go different ways, and it's obviously true that because the self, as you understand it, is just a continuous stream of, consciousness, which will always perceive itself as, continuous if it can. So it's like, even if she does integrate more of him than she originally meant to, it will naturally to her always feel like herself.
Yeah.
And additionally, obviously, because Imago lines are tested for and specifically chosen in regards to each link in their line, these people already agree on so much that any kind of merging is also not going to change that much anyway.
I loved the idea, or love is the wrong word. I thought it was very interesting, the idea of them going, if an Imago line is corrupted, we'll purge it. We will not continue to pursue it.
We're checking this bitch.
I was like, what does it entail for an imago line to be corrupted? Does it mean if somebody becomes a criminal, a petty crime, like a huge moral crime? We have that one interlude where we find out that what was his name? I think it was the guy from Heritage. Or the woman from Heritage.
I was about to say, that's a woman doing crimes, okay?
The woman from Heritage, who's responsible for the sabotage on her imago.
Yeah.
And, like, the echo that she feels from all her previous chain links being so disgusted by her doing that. Would something like this, for example, qualify as a corruption of an imago line? Is it that some of the previous chain links start to turn mad inside of, the new carrier of the imago machine, and thus it's like getting chucked? I thought it was very interesting, and it's been mentioned a couple of times. They're like, corrupted imago lines get purged, but they never really explain what it means. You know what I mean?
I mean,
like
it means the imago gets destroyed.
No, I mean in terms of what does it mean that someone goes array? Like, what does an imago line have to do to qualify to be purged?
I mean, I think the thing there is that it's not common and that it's a huge transgression if it doesn't. Like, the ones who got purged, the examples we got were like traitors and people who, were going to cause huge harm to the stationer system itself. So
that means that the current person carrying the imago fucks up. It's not that someone goes, by the way, the voices in my head or the memories in my head have been doing weird shit.
No, the corruption means that, like, we cannot give this line to somebody new because whatever has been left in it is obviously destructive to our system. So they're pruning away any kind of rebellious inclinations and stuff. They're like, we cannot keep this because it will corrupt the next person who has it, because who knows how convincing that imago could be of their bad ideas. That's what they mean with it. It's not that because usually it's chosen in a way that, and through the psychotherapy, it's usually assured that obviously because the imago is just a collection of memories and not itself a functioning person, it is weaker than a fully developed, prepared mind and will always, take a back seat.
Well, it will not always take a back seat, but yeah. I can live with that. I wondered. I was like, what do they have to do? What? But yeah, that makes sense to me. That does make sense. I liked the concept of the idea that Sixth Direction sees this chance for what he thinks is eternal life.
It's so funny.
By taking that and putting it into a child. And I wondered whether Iskander just didn't explain it properly, or whether Sixth Direction just ran off with the idea, disregarding any additional information he did get from Iskander. But
no, I think Iskander sold it as immortality because he knew that was what Sixth Direction wanted.
Yeah. But
because obviously it's not real immortality. It's the same as being like, oh, here we have a clone with all your active memory, which means even if something happens to you, you're still around. Or the idea that, like, teleportation is just rebuilding your body exactly at the goal location while destroying the original. It's like, well, you are not immortal. You die. But whatever is left of you in the new brain has the impression that it's still alive and has, like, a, an illusion of a continuous sensory experience and consciousness. But it's not actually immortality. Because, like, obviously, you die. You still die. You will never reap the benefits of a new body. But the copy of your memory that exists in this new body will feel like that's what it's doing.
Yeah.
So no one ever feels like they died, even though that is exactly what happened. Because obviously the dead person's not around anymore.
To complain, yeah. Well,
yeah, no, they can't be like, oh, fuck, it didn't work. Wait, that's not me anymore.
Yeah.
it's like, no, this is an entirely separate you now. But
I thought it was so funny, especially in the end when he still tries to like dangle that little thing in front of Mahit, and he's like, you give me what I want and you get what you want, and she's like, my dude, I would love to. I mean, I wouldn't love to, but I can't. Like, I literally cannot.
I do also think it's like fun because we meet Iskander as like, oh, he seems like, a fun guy. Oh, he's done some, more questionable decisions, but that's just like, okay, he was under pressure, you need to do stuff. And then you find out he's like monstrous because he's willing to basically kill a kid and like raise a kid specifically to be killed. What is just to prolong the life of one old guy.
Especially since you find out that the kid liked Iskander. I mean, you find out that before you find out the rest, but it's like, aw, little kid who liked him.
Yeah, like, that's the thing. It's like, Iskander is like a likable guy. What the snitches you get of him is like, oh yeah, he seems like a fun dude. I like him. And then you're like, oh, that's not good, man. That's really, really, really bad.
It's like these people you meet and they're like wonderfully nice, super like easygoing, funny, charismatic. Yeah. And then you ask them, oh, what do you work for? And they're like, oh, an insurance company. And you go, ugh, no.
I mean, honestly, it's more like, oh yeah, I put an orphan in a grinder every hour, to make 100,000. And it's like, oh, okay.
Or they have some very strong political views. And you're like, goddamn, that's not even something I'm willing to debate about at any point in time of you. But yeah, honestly, Iskander, such a power moves guy. They don't always go in the direction I think he wanted them to go, but he had his sleeve full of power moves. He was just like dealing them out left and right.
He was doing a lot. He was doing so much, but it's unclear how successful a lot of it is, really.
He just saw opportunity at every second, and then even if that opportunity was dumb, he was taking it.
Yeah, he has the energy of, a cat when you wave the toy in front of it. Yeah. Like, even if the cat should know it's not reaching this, it's still trying. Yeah. Full force. It's...
And once it actually has managed to catch it, like, duh, let's go for the bigger toy next time. I mean, that was one thing I was like, I think it's obvious. I don't think she's gonna do it, as in she, the author, but I think it's obvious the whole whom he decided to bed at court. But I was happily not surprised, but how would you say, I was vindicated in my thoughts that he did not only sleep with 19-ounce, but he was also like personal lover boy.
He fucked that old man.
The emperor is like, he's a like, little Manor,
He didn't only shoot for the moon, he did shoot for the sun, and he did land. It did kill him in the end too, but like, he did land though. Like,
he was like, I'm doing stuff at court. That's what he was doing.
Yeah, it's like, I'm doing stuff.
The emperor, like, hi, I'm stuff.
Yeah.
It was so funny to me. That's also why I like this Imago thing, because she still gets the what do they call, the endocrine response from Iskander, and she's like, at some point she's like, whom else did he fuck okay,
Yeah.
I'm shaking hands left and right, and I cannot differentiate whether it's panic or horniness I feel. So
Yeah.
I need to get my Iskander back, because maybe he knows whom he, jumped into bed with in the past 5 years.
Maybe he knows. Well, I would certainly hope so.
Well, no, the 5 years Iskander,
Yeah, you mean the young one. Yeah,
something-
no, it's
At least the Emperor thing happened later.
later. That's true.
But I just love how he was like, oh gosh, how many people did he like? Oh my god.
I mean, he's like the personification of like the theme of the book, which is stated multiple times, which is like, what is it? Nothing the Empire touches stays clean, or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's like the quote.
Yeah.
It's
he did a lot of touching with the Empire, quite frankly.
It did not stay clean. It did not stay clean.
There was a lot of shower would not wash off this man, quite frankly.
And it's I mean, in the end, it explains why all the people are like, oh, he left quite the impact, and oh my, your predecessor, he was very involved in the court.
Yeah.
But in the beginning, you're just thinking, oh, he was a scheming guy. And in the end, you find out he was not just a scheming guy.
Yeah, it was like, it was not just political. Okay.
And I honestly, also, once she gets old Iskander back, when he's always like, oh, but she used to love me. It's like, bruh. Please.
Yeah.
He's so messy. I love him.
He is so messy. And like, I do really respect 19 ads for being like, I love him, but also we can't do this. Like, he needs to be stopped.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
On a personal level, I love this guy. But politically speaking, we can't start on immortal emperors. We can't do it. We cannot do this.
It's just not a thing to do. And I love that she was able to kind of also curb, like, not on purpose, I guess. She was probably more like, oh yeah, well, it's convenient, to curb him meddling in another way, which was the city's algorithm and like his interest in that. She was like, oh, we can just kill him, once and for all. We will not have anybody meddling with the science ministry. We'll not have anybody meddling with the emperor anymore, in and outside of the bedroom.
Yeah.
And we can just get that all done immediately. All of them are so efficient.
Yeah, they're real go-getters. They're all like, they know what they want and they're getting it. Even if that includes producing a few corpses on the way.
It's with all politicians, you don't get to a position like that without having a couple of them in your house somewhere in the garden with a little flower on top.
That's just how it goes.
I liked conceptually the city as an entity thing. Mm-hmm. I thought it was very interesting. I was, again, hoping to maybe find out a little bit more about that. But then again, that's not the main plot point. It's something that Iskander was also interested in, but it's not the main thing. Especially because the algorithm idea with the sunlit people was so interesting to me. I was fully expecting to find out that those are just robots.
No, but they aren't.
Yeah, I know.
They are literally people. Like,
yes, I know, but I was honestly expecting them to actually turn out to be robots, because I was like, but what if they're like literally controlled, not just getting their commands by AI, but like literally being, AI in terms of robots. But
I mean, I do fully expect there to be some neurosurgical intervention and some actual, like, I think the implication is extremely heavy, And it's like, we all know empires are hypocritical. Like, we've already seen it with Sixth Direction. We know they're doing something to those people. These aren't people, and it's also so heavily implied with their speech in that they don't refer to themselves in me as an individual, but as a group always. So it's like, those are not people anymore. Like, not in the sense one
also
would
in the way that they move. They all move at the same time. And I mean, military squads are synchronized, especially like during like just walking and stuff, but not to that level. Like,
it's also it also feels very obvious with the like straight, like with the most obvious depersonalization you can have with all of them having just gold plates instead of faces, where it's like, okay,
right. So I was like, come on, give me a little nugget here.
I assume that's gonna be in the next book. I assume we're gonna do a lot more rebellion and stuff in the next book. Now that the succession is cleared, we're gonna deal with all of that, with actual like anti-imperial unrest and not just, the succession question unrest. Where two fail sons are trying for their own coup and both failing hilariously. 'Cause it's just...
I mean, especially because in the blurb for the second book, there's like, one of the characters is gonna be the captain of the ship that's supposed to communicate with the others. With the other aliens. So that captain probably has some experience in the outer parts of the Imperium and like going out. I said Imperium, Empire. Thinking in Star Wars terms. I'm just excited for that. I didn't order it yet, but gonna get to
No, me neither. I mean, I don't like buying books while I still have unread books, especially like ordering them online. Like, if I'd seen it in a store, I would have gotten it, but
you didn't see it yet.
Yeah. And I'm also usually very wary of buying a sequel to a book I have not read yet, which often leaves me in the unenviable position of being like, wow, I really liked this first book. Wish I had the rest to read immediately. But also I have had a lot of books where I read the first one in a series and I was like, oh, good. This is not, I'm not reading more of this.
But maybe, do you have some thoughts you want to touch on more? Because I think I've just been like, throwing them out at you.
I think I would love to talk about language and how it's used in the story itself. I love it as an element of world building, which is extremely effective in its use. Obviously, I don't know that much about poetry, and especially I'm not gonna have a strong opinion on poetry on a language that's not my native language, because I'm just like, it sounds fine to me. It sounds like poetry. I don't know. It's not that meaningful to me. But like, I loved how relevant language and storytelling was, and I loved that it really ran as a red thread through the entire story.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. The moment that Mahit arrives and Three Seagrass, they're like in the sky car, and Three Seagrass is like, oh, do you want me to, tell you something about the buildings we're coming across? I could recite a poem. I was like, a poem? And then Mahit's like, oh yeah, sure. And I'm like, okay, so poems are normal? And she's like, yeah, this, was it 70 or 17,000 words poem?
Yeah, it's this insanely long poem describing every building in like the inner palace or whatever. It's amazing.
And I was like, oh, this is how we're gonna do this. Oh, all right, I like this.
I also love how much of Texcalan speech ends up being recursions to stories that already exist, how much it is self-referential, and how much this tells you also about imperial culture, which is like self-replicating and, always building on itself while like taking some stuff from outside, but it's basically like a self-perpetuating propaganda machine at its core. And I also love that what we learn about language informs how we can read, like, the title of the book. Because it's not just a memory called Empire, it's also a memory called the world, you know, the known universe, which is also fun.
Yeah.
Like, that's very fun.
No, it's
really... But yeah, I think it's also fun that, you know, the word for the city, the planet, and the entire empire, and as an extension, like the known world as the empire sees it, is all the same word, and it all depends on context on what exactly it means.
That's one thing I love, the context thing, because we as an outsider together with Mahit get to experience that with her little like head notes basically of her going, oh shit, I have to interpret this differently, like, oh no, I did this wrong again, oh it was sarcasm, shit. That was really enjoyable. The way with the little ways that other people would use you as a word or we as a word. Very fun. The fact that they, in the end, send out a poem with a hidden message, you know, for like, oh, please pick us up. We're being trapped in the what was it, in the intelligence quarters.
Yeah.
I really liked that.
But I also love that it was then co-opted immediately also by the empire itself. It's like, damn, yeah.
Well, not just by the empire, by the people protesting first, and then by like the Sixth Direction.
By Sixth Direction himself, who is a personification. But yeah, no, it's like it really does hammer home, like, yeah, nothing touched by empire does stay clean. Like, even your own personal like message is like turned into propaganda fodder now. That this old guy has said it before ritualistically killing himself. Great. I would also love this to happen to one of my poems, quite frankly.
I mean, it's the equivalent to a sticky note, right? Left somewhere.
It's so funny.
And then this guy comes across a sticky note and goes, ooh, that's some prime literature right there. I mean, it's good, obviously, but yeah, I like the implication. I also like the way it makes you feel kind of like a little scholar yourself, that you have a glossary in the back with the pronunciation and stuff.
It's very meaningful world building in the sense that you really do feel there are different cultures that exist in this world who have their own norms and expectations. It's such an easily digestible bit of world building that weaves so nicely throughout. Because like sometimes you have books, I mean, just look at something like the Grisha trilogy, which sometimes throws in, you know, words that are not English, but that's about it, you know, what you get there. But this is like very, very focused on the language aspect being meaningful, and also because it's obviously ingrained in Texkalani culture, it is then also ingrained in the story, and what people say publicly is super important to the geopolitics of the entire world at the end, which is really, really fascinating.
It's really cool. I also loved the idea, or I always say love, I find it interesting. I found the idea interesting of how much the culture and language spreads, you know, to the outer corners of the Imperium, for example, to the station. And how, you know, like the kids grow up there reading those stories as well. And it's like this process of, you know, in 50 years, those kids will have the same integration of referencing our stories like our kids will have here. And then there won't even be a fight to include the station into us, because they will want to be. You know, old people have died. There's only the new ones. Who have integrated themselves into our language as well as they can. So it's almost used as like a warfare, their language and culture, because it's so exclusive in a way. You have to know so many intricacies about the language and when to use what and which like somatic things, like how to move your body and your hands while they're talking, to make sense and to not seem like a total like dumb barbaric person, you know, that's walking around.
I mean,
there.
Most people don't need to know that. I mean, we know that stationers, for example, do consume, you know, their stories, but like a lot of it is translations because most people are not learning Tusculani.
No,
like,
of course
they are not doing that.
I mean, when you
work.
get to the planet Tusculani, to the city,
of course,
then it's like, I mean, obviously because it's the main city, but it's like a brand of you're dumb, you know, and when they're not immediately seen as like a sort of second citizen, is like a non-priority citizen.
I mean, they always will. Like, even Mahit is like, you will always be a barbarian. Like, that. That's also the thing. Is like, you will never be one of us, even if you try. Like, you will never be. And it's also like, well, maybe it's good that you aren't, because looking
Weird
at the kind
stuff.
of people we meet, it's like, you want to be like this guy? I don't know, man. I don't know if that's worth it.
Yeah. It's definitely, the language part was definitely interesting. One part which I personally struggled a lot with, and I guess but just because it's like not common for me, was the naming convention. I was struggling so bad. Next to the pronunciation glossary, at least in our or my version, there's also a name, like character and things and roles glossary in the back, and I actually had to consult that like a couple of times. I was like, I don't know who this person is. I was constantly tripping over the numbers of people's names that they had. Like, I would mostly remember the second bit of the name, then I was like,
I love how you texted me yesterday with like the names and the numbers were wrong, and I was like, am I wrong? No, I'm not wrong. This was not the right number. You're like, we went from 16 13, and I was like, no, and then, oh no, it was 13, and I was like, no, it's 30. I'm pretty sure it's 30.
Like, I was so happy. I remembered 3 seagrass all the time in the beginning. I was like, okay, that's the one character. And then it got hard. The personal assistant from 19 Adze, who then saves them at the end of the book. I was like, what the fuck was her name? Oh, is that the assistant? Is that her? And then it's like 1 second later, one sentence later, they're like, oh, her assistant came to save us. And I was like, I guess that was her name. Yeah, sure.
I guess I did read it over a much shorter period of time than you, so I didn't have that problem at all. Sometimes I was like, was this person mentioned before, with like characters who we didn't hear much of? But then most of those had names where it was like, oh, this is memorable. Like 8 Loop. It's such a silly name. It's like, an 8 and also loop, because an 8 is like a loop.
I would have expected 8 Loop to be like the minister of transportation or something. You know, like a loop, like a crossroads, like a merry-go-round. Oh, like a traffic loop, yeah. We've got 8 of them in the city.
No, but I thought she'd be in the story more. She's just mentioned. I thought she'd be an acting character, because she's also one of the co-regents, so I was like, wait. Yeah. She gonna do it? But no, it turns out we just have one meeting where she's like, yeah, I don't need you anymore. Good luck, though.
I don't want to hear about it.
Amazing.
And in the end, we find out that they staged a coup against her, and then she did survive in the end. Woo. Like,
yeah, it's like, well, I didn't really care about this old woman, but cool, I mean, guess.
Yeah, why? She was mean. You know, why should you care?
Yeah, but also it's like, I'm not Mahit or Iskander. I'm not horny about the Emperor, so I don't care that they grew up together or that she's important to him. She's not important to the story, so I don't care if she dies. You know, I was like, damn, I'm not invested in her. Yeah.
one name, and there was the same name that you mentioned yesterday, like the 6 helicopter guy.
That was so funny. When he was introduced, I was like, damn, I'm gonna remember him forever. 6 helicopter. Yeah. My man who loves shooting people.
I was like, do we get to see him fly a helicopter? Wouldn't that be so funny?
But we get to see him shoot a gun, which Mahit is like scandalized by, which is very cute. Her being like, projectile weapons? But you can't do that.
It's like
that
illegal.
Could damage the space station.
As if the coup also isn't illegal, you know. She's
but I understand that it's a much more visceral taboo where you're like, oh, this could kill everyone on the station if you damage the wrong things. Where it's like fires, bombs, firearms. These are some of the most dangerous things you could have on like a small space station.
Like a vicious long needle, you know? That's the kind of...
She's like, that's fine. Knives, fine, whatever. But, like, stuff that explodes, dude, you're gonna kill everyone.
The station is like Scotland, you know? It's like knife fights, that's normal every single day. A gunfight, that's when we're gonna start to have problems. It's also,
like, I say small station, it's like a station that holds 30,000 people.
Yeah, I was about to say, I think
it's comparatively to a planet, it's obviously small, but it's not in and of itself a small station.
Yeah, it's being said that it's the biggest, if not one of the biggest stations that they have in outer space. Yeah. But, I mean, again, what you just said, the dimensions are dwarfed.
Because again, Taxcalan is a planet-wide city. So the comparison is just like, alone, like, Mahit mentions the palace alone
the palace
houses 100,000 people who just work there and live there. So the station does seem comparatively very, very small. Yeah.
At least to her and to us as the reader. But 30,000 is like, that's a good, decent sized small city in Germany.
Yeah, no, that's
like, that's a thing.
That's quite a bit of people, yeah.
Yeah. I also, I guess, coming back to the whole, it wasn't the political intrigue plot, but it was still a plot that was being touched upon. The whole thing with the science ministry and the algorithm going off and making the connections with the hydroponics, like, oh, they inquire this maybe because
why would this guy care about how we grow stuff and what we do with our water on our station? Because, like, I've seen it here. You guys are wasting water left and right. It's scary.
You've got it in, like, weird little tubes on the subway. Like,
why would you guys have problems with that? And then it's like, oh. And
I felt like, again, I understand why there wasn't that much in it. But don't dangle this delicious piece of additional conflict in my face and then...
I mean, I assume, again, this is also something that will pay off in the sequel. Because I assume that, you know, we have literally met people who are anti-imperialist activists. Yeah. It feels strange to not have a payoff of actually dealing with all the things that would cause unrest that we have set up already. That would be crazy.
It was so funny. She's like, wakes up from the brain surgery. And then all these, like, those group of people's like, the fuck? What are you doing here? She's like, what are you doing here? And we're just some normal rebels, you know? Business as usual.
Yeah, and, what was her name? Five Pilot was just like, yeah. This is my illegal surgery house. I do illegal surgery whenever I want on whoever I want.
Yeah, don't be surprised, each of you.
Like, I bring whoever I want into my house.
Yeah.
Don't worry about it.
It's like she paid fair and square. I even wanted to correct her nose, but she didn't want to, so I didn't. You know, shame. Could have given her a nice nose. Yeah, no. It was definitely something I guess once we are done reading the second book, we should like leave a comment under the video, just saying, yeah, it all worked out in book 2. Perfect. Nice. Yeah. Everything we're gonna say, it all is being addressed.
I mean, I don't know how much of your like wishes will be addressed, because again, it's like I understand this is the difference between us. Yeah, you were really into sci-fi, so any of the sci-fi ideas are like make you like you know when you hold up a treat, the dog ears, they go up. That's you. You hear a fun idea and you go, oh, idea for me, please. And I'm just like, oh yeah, that sounds fun, and I'm done with it. I'm like, yeah,
you're the dog.
Maybe we'll deal with it, but like. It doesn't immediately get me hyped, you know. I'll look at it and I go like, I'm not that hungry right now. I'll if it happens, it happens, but I'm not. You know, I'm not doing tricks for this.
Yeah, like I'm not doing a trick for a treat. Give me something else. Yeah. And the dog trainer goes, oh, not one of those again, you know, to motivate it.
You know, you're the dog person. I'm the cat person.
Yeah,
it's just like that.
It's just we're ducks at heart, but. On the outside,
of course,
I'm a dog and you're a cat. That's true.
Yeah.
I just get excited by these.
You
ideas.
know, I think that's charming, and I do understand it. But I'm also just sitting here with my like realism brain going, but that's not what the story is about.
It's right? Like dream big, okay.
I'm like, I don't think you should dream that big. I don't think they're doing that. But maybe I'll be proven wrong, and we have a bunch of setup that goes nowhere, which would confuse me, because this book wraps up so much of its strands so well that it would be deeply strange to me if the second one just dropped so much of the setup.
Yeah, I'd be a bit disappointed.
Because we had so much mention of the, you know, rebellious tendencies in Odile sector, and how that had to be, you know, beaten into submission, and we've met characters who were anti-imperial. Even 12 Azalea had like some anti-imperialist tendencies. For him it was more like for funsies. He wasn't serious, but like, we know it exists. We know it exists in the city. We know there are bombings. We know, like, we know stuff is happening. So, to leave that entirely unexplored would be so strange. I can't imagine that.
I think it's gonna get addressed in the second book, because it gets mentioned by Mahit at the end of the book, being like, we haven't heard anything from, like, she names the people by name. I forgot the name, 10 something. Yeah. We haven't heard anything from her and her rascals of the rebellion, but who knows? And it's like, well, obviously. We're gonna, hopefully we only had know.
Like the fun failed. I still can't get over how One Lightning, the general, was like, we are going to get that crown, boys, if it's the last thing we do. And then he failed, and then immediately was like, "Oh no, I'm just here for health and safety of the planet. Look at me standing next to 19 odds. You know, we're best friends. I support her. I'm not at all mad that I didn't get this position or anything. I'm fine with this. It's totally good."
I loved it, especially because it was like it was just so dumb. Like the whole thing. You know, he tries to do the quote-unquote normal thing, you know, do the rebellion, get the throne, blah, blah, blah. And then this dumb fuck 30 Larkspur is like, nuh-uh. You stirred something, I stirred something. And then they were both, like, starting something at the same time. And it's
like extra funny because they're both fail sons, because One Lightning has not had military victories which would entitle him to the throne. He really wants, and he's like, I promise, guys, I'll manage something later. And 30 Larkspur is like, he sucks at this insurrection shit, and he's just a Nepo baby who got lucky, but he's convinced he's a schemer. And on the other hand, you have In the Bunker, 6 Direction, and 19 Odds both going like, yeah, this rebellion is stupid as shit. Yeah, it's going stupidly. Like,
I think the theory of that, like, one lightning had in his head was, this is gonna be my military victory. Like, what are you talking about? I am victorying so hard right now.
He's like, the people love me. And most people are like, who is that guy?
They're like, oh, damn. I thought this guy who then also ends up trying to kill Mahit was so weird. The military veteran dude. I kick into the military.
It wasn't Pinecone.
11 Conifer.
Conifer, yes. Yeah.
11 Conifer.
11 Conifer. It was so funny.
I also loved the public announcement later on.
Of his death, that was also so funny.
Like, oh yeah, I'm gonna get checked out for strokes, you know?
It was like, yeah, guys, he had a stroke, we promise. After his short illness, he passed away. And I was like, well, that illness really was very short. It was like a few seconds of illness.
It's like, yeah, I mean, they're not wrong, you know? But yeah, that guy was weird. I have to admit, and I think it was a name thing, that in the beginning I was like, who is trying to supersede who? Like, who's standing outside the gates again? Oh no, that was the wrong person. Ah, shit. But
at first I got really confused with the emperors because it kept mentioning a previous emperor, especially from like the epics and stuff, and then I was like, who are we talking? Because for some reason I assumed the emperors were like numbered sequentially or like in meaningful connection. So I was like, what's this? Oh no, we've got Sixth Direction. Cool. Okay, that's our guy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fine.
He's our dude. Especially because they called the current emperor His Brilliance, or then later 19 I'd say Her Brilliance. Or Your Brilliance, I think is what they say. When they address them specifically. But it's like, in any other sense or situation, as you just said, they just say emperor to whomever they mean. So it's like, it's like the House of the Dragon thing with, he said the prince who was promised. He was talking about a different Aegon girl. Now we have a war because we all call our kids the same name. So now we're in a bit of a tizzle because
oops, simple clerical error. Oopsie.
Wrong Aegon. Sorry. War has started. Gotta go through with it now. That was the same way. It's like, which fucking emperor are you talking about?
Yeah.
Which person are you talking about? But I think it was also, to me, because lightning and Larkspur, like one lightning is about the same, looked the same length as 30 Larkspur. So it was kind of I
am judging you. I think these collections of words look very different to each other, but okay.
I think, yeah, both.
I think 1 and 30 look extremely different.
No, as I said, I started ignoring the numbers, and which because we have both L and L. But I got it in the end. You're
like, all these Targaryens have the same name. That's crazy, man.
Daemon, Aemon.
No, if you're just looking at the last name and ignoring their like
Baela,
first names,
Jayla.
it's like, well, that's crazy. They all have the same name.
Wouldn't you know? Yeah.
But no, it's.
And I also love the simplicity of the solution in the end to be like, yeah, I mean, we've established this previously. We can't go and annex people. If our borders aren't secure.
That was very elegant, yeah.
It was such a...
It's like, it was also like the one moment where Mahit actually got lucky. Yeah. And it was like, oh, I mean, I did have to get brain surgery to read this message, but actually, we actually do have a solution now. And then everything went to shit again, because the two stupid rebellions were happening.
Yeah, but couldn't have known it. Yeah. And she got Iskander on along the way, so she was able to
who ended up not that helpful, because after Sixth Direction died, he's having like, you know,
the big
melodramatic grief episodes, I would call them, but okay.
Yeah. He has like a reverse boner. He has the sadness.
Yeah, she's like, yeah, and sometimes I could do nothing but like cry and weep, and I was like, dude, how intense were his feelings?
It's like he was really in love with that guy. I felt he was more in love with the Emperor. I know we all
feel differently, but I also feel like he's you know, he's being a bit of a drama queen. It feels a little too extreme.
Imagine, just try. Imagine, you're together with this political person, and you're not really sure whether she loves you or you're just, you know, bad mates, but both of you share a deep love for this other guy you're also fucking.
I still don't get that, right? Honestly.
And then you get killed, and like one of your lovers is involved with that, and then you just stay in cryo lying around on a corpse somewhere, and then you get put into this young person who's also horny, might we add, at someone, and then you get to see your old dude again. And it's like, oh my god, my old dude. And then you have to watch as the old dude slits himself open on public TV. And it kind of sucks, like, I understand.
Yeah, but again, like, days later, he's still having, like, insane crying fits where she can do nothing but, like, curl up on her bed, which I feel like is a little over the top.
But it's like, it's just days. If it was after months... I mean, everybody processes grief differently, but where is he supposed to go with his emotions, you know? I think a couple of days is fine. Totally fine.
I still think it's weird that he's this emotionally invested in the Emperor. I do not get it. I'm like...
I think he just genuinely liked him. I think it wasn't just fucking, you know?
No, of course, yeah, but I don't understand that aspect of it, because... like, even, like, not even emotion, but even intellectually, I cannot imagine looking at a person in this position and not seeing the, like, kilometer-high mountain of corpses he's standing on all the time. Like,
yeah.
Right? Because, sure, he's presiding over 80 years of peace, whatever, but peace in, like, quotation marks. He's putting down rebellions. He's still annexing places all the time. This isn't peace in the, like, absolute sense. He's getting people killed all the time. Like, for an emperor, he's, like, doing a good job. He's one of the more defensible versions of someone of that. But, like, he is still piloting the, like, horror machine, right? Like...
Yeah, but I completely agree with you, but we're talking about Iskander here.
I know, Iskander is like...
The guy who has a hard-on for the Empire, who doesn't care about, you know, for example,
we were talking about a guy who was like, yeah, I think we should, you know, raise this kid and then, you know, in more esoteric terms, basically, like, yeah, destroy his soul and steal his body and, like... make him watch it, like, make him experience being overwhelmed by something outside of him and steal his body. It's like, yeah, he is a weird, but I'm still like, I still can't believe somebody would feel that. I'm still like, damn. I feel like they did make a bad choice in, like, Ambassador with him. I think he was a little too horny for the Empire.
They should have sent someone who's a bit more skeptical.
But on the other hand, I'm also like, maybe, like, his willingness to compromise and, like, his horniness did also keep the station safe enough. Like, he did sell their state secrets, but they also didn't get annexed yet. And the people in power now are too morally opposed to even want to use the technology for themselves. So they're fine with, like, leaving them be. Yeah. So I guess in the long term it did work out. But if it had gone according to his plans, it would have been deeply, deeply wrong.
yeah, but that's why. He's a fun, interesting guy, but he's not a good guy.
Oh, no, absolutely sense. Not. No,
so but it makes total sense for him to genuinely...
I'm not, like, he is fun, but I'm also, like, I'm not only judging him morally, I'm also judging his taste. I'm just like, dude, really? Like... Come on.
It's like, you can do better, girl.
He's like, Iskander was like, the Emperor, kind of a gilf, you know?
Well, I mean, how old is this dude when we meet him?
I mean, he's not literally a grandfather, but when we meet him, he's like 80-something. He's
80-something.
He's super old.
Well, wait, 80-something. So 20 years ago, when Iskander started his life there, he was like 26, I think, is what? No, he was 21, because he's 26.
Yeah. It's been 20 years.
So
the guy was 60-something.
Yeah. And, like, that's... it's just 40 years. Like, what are you talking about? Like, that's not...
I'm just like, I don't get wanting to fuck a 60-year-old. I'm just saying that.
Iskander saw a chance and he took it.
Yeah, no, Iskander was like, no, I'll get close to that throne, whatever it takes, man.
And along the way, he fell in love. Well, yeah. I mean, Iskander started the relationship when he was like in his 30s, 40s. Yeah. And the emperor was in his 70s, so... It doesn't make it better. The more I talk about it doesn't make it better.
I'm just put off by his like oldness, like aesthetically. I'm just like, dude, oldness. Who would? I understand that people have different tastes, but I'm just like, dude, a 70-year-old. I don't want to think about that.
Maybe he was just very into his personality.
I mean, like, he was also obviously into. The fact that he was the emperor. Like,
yeah. He's like, I'm fucking my favorite country right now. He was real
into that. Yeah, it's like...
It's like, if Hitalia was a thing there, he'd be living the life.
This is a loaded statement already.
Like, he'd be having it.
Let's be real here. The emperor is already considered like a representative of the entire empire itself, so they're kind of LARPing Hitalia already. Like,
Does that mean that Iskander is fucking himself? Because he is an extension.
Well, no, he's not. Lazar Station is not part of the empire.
But he's an ambassador. He has...
But he just works there. That's just his job.
So it's a work affair.
Yeah.
I mean, it's an affair. He's just messy.
He is so messy. I mean, I don't even know. Is it an affair if neither of them has, like, a committed relationship with like boundaries?
I wonder.
Are they not just in a relationship? I don't know what the exact definition of affair is.
they don't but they don't really even touch on that in terms of Texcalanli culture, like what it means.
I think regardless of that, the emperor can fuck whoever he wants. I think there's no.
Yeah.
But also he's not married or anything. Like he's not. No one else talks about marriage, which is not surprising because it's like, yeah, it's sci-fi. Why would they adhere to extremely old specific customs that we have right now, which make no real sense, It's like,
But there wasn't any big talk about partnerships in general.
I do think it's crazy that he didn't have kids. Like, that's
he has his little clone. And the clone
he has this 90% clone, but again, he's 80-something. And he clearly fucks quite a bit. So it's interesting that he didn't have kids. That's an active choice to make there.
Yeah, I mean, they do say that people rarely get kids anymore, like
they
bodily,
don't.
like
which makes
vaginally,
sense.
Which makes so much sense. Because it's just so dangerous. So it's
dangerous and like unpredictable in ways that,
Yeah, it's too unpredictable. So it kind of makes sense that even due to his high age, he doesn't have any biological children. But I do agree that it's weird that at no point when he was 40, he thought, let's make a clone now.
Yeah, especially because he's touted as like a good emperor who like makes smart political decisions. where it's like, dude, did you forget that you weren't immortal? Because at like 50, you weren't aware of imago machines yet. You can only argue that like, yeah, he in his 70s he had like the one kid.
Yeah.
But he didn't have like a replacement. Which again, he doesn't need. He can just name a successor. They don't have to be related, which makes sense. It's, you know, blood relations are very, you know, very passe. You know, it's like
Duck 1X and not working. Like.
No, I was like, I can't say very 19th century or something. I was I also can't say, you know, 2000 years, like, AD or whatever. It's not, it doesn't roll off the tongue. It's just not, there's not a good word for it, you know.
Yeah, no.
But like, it makes sense that this wouldn't be a concern anymore.
Maybe he was just happily child-free, you know?
I mean, yeah, it's not like he would be raising the kid. He's not raising 8 Antidote, you know? He's not...
No, of course not. But in the sense of, like, he doesn't have to, but maybe morally,
he doesn't have to be.
He, like, feels a bit
but
shitty.
Still, it's strange that he didn't have a groomed successor ready, really.
Yeah, I agree.
19 ads makes a good successor because she is very competent and she shared a lot of his, I assume, political inclinations and thoughts.
Yeah.
And like she's suited to a position of power because she knows how to wield it and stuff. But she was also not a named successor, and he probably wouldn't have made her one if there weren't, you know, pressure to name one immediately.
If the others hadn't fucked up as much, and if 8 Loop wasn't like MIA, you know, he wouldn't have named.
I assume also if 8 Loop wasn't also his age, where the same problem would have come again, like immediately. Like, yeah, they're both in their 80s. Like, she probably won't die quite as fast because her life is less stressful, but only marginally. And
yeah, like, and I mean, she wasn't sick at the point of where the book takes place. You know, that's another thing, that he isn't just old, he's on borrowed time because he's not doing well. Like, Boyo looks sick and everybody knows it. Yeah, no, that's it's certainly... I like the small tidbits of information on daily life we get throughout the book. Like the food, the way how things go on Lizelle Station, like what kind of sleeping accommodations they have, her issue with, which you already mentioned, like the resources being so blatantly just used up in the city, and just the whole water thing.
Especially, I loved her being like, wait, this is meat from a real animal?
This was alive?
Fuck! It's so cute to watch that.
And then Seagrass just going, well, it's a good restaurant, Mickey.
It's so cute. No, it's good. It's good. It's a well-realized world that feels believable, which is just very nice to read about. It's like, yeah. I love this. This is fun. This is cool. I like this.
It just also makes things so much more realistic. Like the whole bit of them being mistaken as students, just lounging on the grass, you know, eating ice cream, sleeping. Yeah. It makes sense because of all the other little things that are being set up. It's not just a convenient lie that the author came up with as to make it plausible for them to sleep on the grass.
It was just like, yeah, that's what students do, man.
Yeah. And due to the little drops of information, and I said before we started recording, I sticky tapped this book to hell because at the beginning of each chapter you always have like 2 snippets, I would call them. Like it's
like you get some sort of official communication both from Texcalan and Stationer Origins. And
it just gives so much more context. I loved the one Here it is. It's chapter 14, where you have two different scripts from like TV shows, a TV show and a graphic story.
Yeah,
so like
that was
also
so
a TV show,
fun.
and because it's like it has nothing to do with the overall plot, but it helps so much with feeling like you genuinely are inside of this world, and it just gives a little bit more flavor.
Yeah.
And it's
No,
like,
absolutely.
oh, these were thoughts that she had, and she wanted to put them in somewhere, so she went
I
through
mean,
them.
they're also often like thematically or directly relevant
Yeah,
to
of
what's
course.
happening in
Some
the
of them
chapter.
are not just tidbits. Like
They're not
some
just
of them,
flavor text, they're like
yeah,
meaningful.
flavor text. Yeah, like it's a like the little, like as if every chapter was a little magic card. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's stuff about, radio sputtering out of pilots who like fought against the big scary aliens. So yeah, some of them are contextually also important. But some are just silly.
Yeah, no, some are just like silly fun, and it's like hee hee.
I really thought that was such a nice little touch. Stuff like that always happens. I'm a codex reader in video games. I slurp up that unnecessary information that is being written into lore.
No, I get that. I do love lore as well. I think it's interesting and I think it's fun, especially video game lore is very compelling because often video game stories themselves are not the greatest because they are for a specific medium with a specific audience.
Yeah.
Which makes sense. It is what it is. But the lore often adds so much to the world where it's like, wow, this is really fun. Especially like I would never invest the time to do like lore analysis or whatever because I also don't play video games really. Yeah. Like I love like video game design and I like watch Let's Play something, but I love when people actually also put like the visual designs of lore together, which often also can have meanings that aren't in the lore text or whatever, but then tell you so much about the world or history, and it's so fun.
One thing I started watching because of my ex was lore videos on Magic the Gathering. It's insane the amount of lore that's inside this card game that they made up with all the different factions and elements and like centuries, millennia of lore context that the story inside of the cards have. It's not just a guy, it's a very important specific guy included in the story. Like... And there's people who make these extensive videos about it. There's one guy, I forgot his name, but he makes like art videos on the art of the cards. What does the art mean? Because they hire artists who do like gigantic oil paintings that then get scaled down to the card size. Yeah. But these oil paintings still exist in the original size. That's
really cool.
It's so much fun. So if you or anybody listening is interested in these kind of analysis, I can recommend Magic the Gathering lore. Watching videos on that. So much fun.
That's so cool.
So interesting. Especially because every new, unless it's like a co-op with another franchise, every new set of cards kind of nestles into the lore.
There's no lore.
They do a really good job of that.
But
excursion.
I do love lore. I love reading about lore. There are sometimes moments where I'm like, okay, that's not a moment for lore. Like there are some books that are so info dumpy where I'm like, no, I'm reading a book for a story. If I'm looking for lore, I'm gonna read lore. It's just different times for different things.
Like it's not lore reading the first 50 pages of Crescent City. It's an info dump. It has nothing to do with lore. Lore needs to feel like you're literally, an adventurer somewhere in the crypt finding a book.
Yeah, I was about to say, lore feels like archaeology. Like you find bits of it, or you read somebody's thesis putting different bits together or whatever. Yeah, but it's not it's not exposition. Yeah, it's like I come for books for different things than I go to. Like, I love reading people's original story lore or whatever they have. Yeah. And it's like, yeah, I love that. I think it's super interesting. But again, there are different moments for these things.
And I just love the way that it was integrated here. The little tidbits.
It was great. Like, again, Mary, it's such a good book.
Yeah,
it's just really, really, really good. And I think this is obviously also in a result of Arkady Martine obviously liking and reading poetry, is that the writing is extremely evocative and effective.
Yeah.
It is, the descriptions are so good. There's such good word plays in there. It's a beautiful experience to read.
Yeah. And it also... I'm sorry. No, continue.
No, it's...
I was just about to say, it's also noticeable that she's... I had to look it up again. That she's a historian. And she, like, frequently educates and talks about how cities develop, how empires develop, how things come to be. It feels well ingrained. It doesn't just feel like good research. It feels like there's a sort of key understanding.
Yeah, there's a fundamental understanding of how things work in the real world, which is transposed onto a fictional world to make it feel believable. No, that is missing from a good chunk of fantasy and sci-fi, where people have cool ideas but don't manage to accurately portray how real humans would interact with such a system. Mm-hmm. It's just like it's just a really, really good book, man. I can't. It was such a delight to read, because before that I read something which I didn't find particularly good. So I was like, oh, this is so good, man.
I was already in a sci-fi mood because I've been reading Starlight, like the second Skyward book, in between our book club books, and in between other books. So it was already like sci-fi-y, but obviously Starlight is YA sci-fi. And then you hop onto this and I'm like, it's like ramping up the speed going at it.
Yeah, and I mean, it's just like, there's a reason this is like a highly acclaimed book.
Yeah.
It's just really, really, really good.
It makes me sad that while it is as highly acclaimed and like I'd say well received, that still you're not hearing as much as I would like in the general book spaces. Because it's talked about, of course, you hear about it. But,
I mean, yeah, it was in conversations like several times, I think, when it was like nominated for prizes. Like,
but a book this good, like this good.
But that's the thing. Like, books this good don't appeal to the lowest common denominator. This isn't a book where you can easily make, TikTok thirst, like, you can't. It doesn't lend itself to it, because it's a lot more about complex themes and ideas, which you can't just break down like that. Like, you could advertise this as like, oh, look, fun, queer, sapphic, sci-fi book. But that's not really what it is. Like, everyone in it has this kind of ambient bisexual energy because they exist in a world that doesn't care about heterosexuality. And, they're just, gender is just not much of a concern in attraction.
Yeah.
But the parts that are about, like, relationships and sex are so minor that it feels strange to advertise like this. It is, of course, a queer book written by a queer writer, but if somebody asked me for book recommendations because they want to read things that are queer, I wouldn't gravitate to this just because I'm like, this is political intrigue.
Yeah.
It also happens to be queer, but that's not important to, when someone's like, oh yeah, I want something with a sapphic romance, and I'm like, well, this technically does have it, but I don't think this will appeal to the people who are like, oh yeah, recommend me sapphic romances,
We wouldn't want it. I totally agree. We wouldn't want it to suffer the Folk of the Air marketing drama with, it's enemies to lovers and it's like so spicy, and then people pick it up and it's like that doesn't fit like what you told me. We wouldn't want that for the book.
No, that's the thing. It's like the problem is that very good things are often not very appealing to the masses because they're not easy to market, because if you go out on TikTok and get like, look, one of my favorite political intrigue sci-fi books, people are like, that sounds complicated. I don't understand. I'm not reading this. I'm gonna read the next formulaic garbage that I come across, which has buzzwords that I like instead,
Yeah. I feel like it would be... It's a valid comment, because, people want to know. But it's like my heart always dies a little when somebody says, has it spice? Is there spice? Spice? No spice? And I'm like, it's not just about that. But that would be under the TikTok that you just explained.
Like, does it have spice? Well, they talk about the flavor profiles of different foods. So there are discussions of spice in there.
There's
and
like a couple
we do have references to sex.
Yeah.
There are naked people. No on-screen sex, though.
A couple of sentences about sweat and being tired of previous exertions, but...
Yeah. People talking about, like, being horny, but that's kind of it, yeah.
It's like a cinnamon cookie, That kind of spice. It's not... It's not chili. But, yeah. I will definitely put this into my canon of books I always recommend when people are like, oh, you read a lot? And I'm like, well, that's subjective. Oh, what would you recommend? I'd be like, this one. Definitely.
This conversation just reminds me of people commenting under This Is How You Lose the Time, or does it have spice? And it's like, it's not about that. How dare you?
Yeah.
How dare you?
This is about a TikTok I sent to Doug number one. Because I had a physical reaction to that TikTok where somebody was talking about exactly that they recommended it. And then I sent it to you, and it's just like, I could feel you shudder. Like,
yeah, it's just like,
across the country.
Tightly written, beautifully composed love story, and you want to know if there's explicit sex. What are you, a fucking 15-year-old too horny to think? It's not about that.
Oh yeah, but they're
literally putting pieces of themselves inside the other, but it's not sexual.
Oh, sorry.
You're like, okay.
It's like, whatever rocks your boat, man. I mean, they do say it's a cosmic experience. So
I literally don't want the boat rocked. That's the point here. We're not even looking for that. That's the point.
We're sailing on land, okay? So that there's
the boat's in the harbor, man. We don't want turbulence.
The boat's in the harbor, out of the water, safe inside the house, the garage.
The wharf, don't worry about it.
Get out.
People are like, does it have spice? And it's like, don't worry about it. Just don't worry about it. Stop worrying about that. If you, I don't understand this because it's just if you want spice, there's a whole erotica section. I respect that you want to read, that's fine, but why would you want a standard story to include, sex is a meaningful part of the human experience, but not every book needs to have this specific part. This is going up to the romance section and being like, okay, but is there a murder? Do we get some detective action? You wouldn't do that because it's weird. Yes.
That'd be something you would do. It's is there a murder mystery? No murder mystery. Okay.
Yeah, somebody recommending me a romance of somebody who's recently lost someone or whatever, and I'm like, okay, is the murder is it a murder? Do they solve it? And they're like, it's about grief and healing. And I'm like, wow, I wish there
You
was
can-
a corpse.
I mean, you can get grief and healing by finding the murderer.
We're like, oh, but is there an investigation? And it's like, well, they do investigate some stuff that's not safe for work, but it's not that kind of investigation. And I'm like, I don't know about that, Chief.
But maybe coming back to the book, is there anything else you want to talk about?
I mean, I could talk about this book because I feel like there's so much fun stuff you could mention about it.
I know.
But yet, no, again, like, everything. Just, this book has everything, you know? Great characters, great world building. The arc of suspense is also great. Like, everything about it is just chef's kiss. I can only recommend it. Like, that's all I can say, really.
I'm going through my
Your
sticky
forest
tabs.
of tabs, yeah.
Oh, one thing, but this will be very quick. It again like connects to the imago thing. One, there's like a small part where Mahit explains like the things that usually happen in movies on Lozelle. It's like people putting imagos from their loved ones inside of them and stuff like that. Or something that didn't happen in movies but actually happened on the station and that was labeled as immoral, but people do it, is if somebody dies and you get their imago, they go to the spouses of the dead person and like just integrate themselves into that life. I just again thought that was a fun, nice little sci-fi nugget put in front of my face. And I wanted to mention it because
it's like, I would love to read the horror story of somebody's, like, you know, relative who dies, and it's like, okay, I know this person has their imago, but, like, that's not really them, but they know so much about you still, you know?
Yeah.
And it's just... It's not quite the person you love, but some of the expressions are the same, and it's like, I can only imagine that. This has such good horror fuel in it, honestly.
I feel like there's a like a short story horror novella potential that this idea has.
There are two types of people. There are people who see it and are like, dude, you could write like an amazing romance out of this. Like, that's like, you know, heartbreaking but like meaningful. And I'm like, you could write such good horror about that.
No, but like that's such a good concept, you know, because on Lozelle Station, it's people accept the imago concept so openly and freely, so you could also just pretend, you know.
I mean, I assume it's recorded who gets an imago, because there's...
Yeah, but what if you're like very nifty?
Yeah, no, I'm sure you could. I think that could also be like a super
It'd be hard
fun
though.
thing.
It'd be hard.
Or like you know, you get somebody to swap imagos out, like you get a different one than you were meant to, or whatever. I think there's like fun things to do with that, but
somebody puts like a corrupted imago inside of you on purpose because they were conspiring with the previous person that corrupted the imago line, and they're like, oh no, don't worry, Cham, I'm gonna just put you into somebody else.
I think it's such a fascinating concept that you could build a whole sci-fi world around imagos and how this like influences society, and so I think that could be amazing. But
I think the one thing that comes close, but it's not really imago, it's more like you are yourself are immortal. It's from Altered Carbon, where they like where you have a body you're being born in, but there's a high chance that you're gonna get put into a different body along the way. And like the only limiting factor to your lifespan is the physical body you're in. And all that you are is like a little chip. It just gets put into people's backs. That's kind of what comes close and what I thought at some point when reading the book. But it's not the same. It's not completely the same. Yeah.
I think there is also... I loved the parallels between Teixcalan being obsessed with recycling the same stories and like recycling the same ideas and, you know, words and stuff over and over, while on the other hand, like, stationers recycle the same people over and over.
Yeah.
And, like, they're both holding onto the past with, like, this white-knuckled grip, but each looks at the other and is like, that's fucked up, man. You shouldn't be doing this. Right? And it's like, it's the same human impulse to try to preserve what came before you. And it's like, it's interesting because, again, they're both looking at each other and going, I wouldn't do that, Chief. That doesn't sound good. That sounds wrong. And it's just like...
It's so... I think that's so interesting because of the implications. Because it's not the same way that they do it. And on the station, it's like this, it's for survival, it's for this, for that, for the Empire. I mean, it's like, this is like our cultural heritage that we have. While you have a heritage person on the station, so it's nice. It's really nice. And like, it's good.
In fairness, on the station, I'm like, it is also for survival. It would be a shame if you could preserve like skills and knowledge for survival that is legitimately necessary, like for pilots and stuff, and you would throw that away. That would be unconscionable in some ways. But of course, you don't just get the knowledge; you get a whole like personality attached to it. Like there's more.
I thought the pilot thing was so cool. Like I would have again, shiny idea being dangled in front of me. Just from the perspective of a pilot, it would have been so interesting because I guess that at some point they're not completely like flying the plane themselves because they've got like 15 other pilots sitting in the back.
I mean, it's like muscle memory. It's not. It's not that you're not flying because again,
but it's
the
like,
goal
it's
is
like
the
instinct,
integration.
you know?
I mean, we do get it from Mahit that it's like, there were gestures that just felt right, and I didn't even have to think about it.
Like ticks and something.
Yeah.
I really liked the idea. When I said we're like, oh no, we do this because of the pilots mainly, I was like, yes. That's such a nice...
You were like, I want to play a game where I'm a pilot at a stationer station. I want it.
I'm a person that really likes this kind of squad trope thing. You know? I love the pilots from Star Wars. You know, their little code names and such. I just like it. I just really like it.
It's so fascinating because I'm just like, I could not, I'm not moved by this, but you're such a sci-fi guy, and I'm like, I love when people enjoy things, like even if it's not my thing, but I'm like, damn.
It's nice when people openly enjoy stuff. I mean, I love listening to your stuff that you enjoy, and I hope people loved listening to us in our episode. Because I already did rate it on Goodreads.
Yeah, me too. I went through and finally added like a bunch of my books from this year to Goodreads, so I'm finally not stuck in one book anymore.
And I did give it 5 stars because what else?
It is just legitimately very good.
I'm so happy for you. For me too. I have a lot of 5 stars, but for you 5 stars.
I have more 5 stars on Goodreads than I have in my own personal rating because like for me the stars emotionally mean a little bit something different than they do mean on Goodreads, and also my personal ratings are split into quality and personal enjoyment. Where on Goodreads I'm just like, this is really good. Yeah.
Okay, so in your personal
this thing. Also has like full like 10 stars, like 5 in both. But it's not one of my personal favorites. Because,
of course not.
Because again, like sci-fi just doesn't scratch that itch. But it's like it is a really good book, and I would totally recommend it to anyone who I thought liked this kind of book. Yeah. I'm recommending it to everyone. But
I was about to say, if this was like urban fantasy or like a sort of
if this were a high fantasy version of this, dude, I'd be foaming at the mouth. Yeah. You know this. I would be crazy about this.
The roles would be reversed. Like you'd be just vibrating in your seat slowly.
Like if we take like the core concepts and put this in a dude, I am chef's kiss. And if you like take the culture and don't do the like Aztec inspired, but do it like with dragons or dragon whatever imagery, I'm like I am living. But again, like, it's like, I really, really like this. I probably won't reread it anytime soon. It's not something that, like, lodges in my brain the way A Deadly Education has. Like, the Skullman series. I'm like, if I owned the first book, I would have reread the trilogy already. But I don't, so... But, like, maybe in, like, a few years or something, I'll reread the duology again if I feel like it. But it's like, no, it's really good though. It's good.
It's, I think, at some point we've got to stop this episode because otherwise we're just gonna continue
it deserves it.
Waxing poetics about it.
Acclaim is absolutely deserved.
Absolutely deserved. So gorgeous. Like, insert this Lady Gaga meme, like, show stopping.
And it didn't even drag, because, like, some authors would have pushed this to, I don't know, 700 pages or something, but it's 450. It's exactly 450 pages in my edition.
It's actually 450?
I mean, like, there's the glossary on top of that, but, like, the story itself is exactly 450. It doesn't drag. It's so good. Everything about it is so good. It's such a well done piece of art. I love it. It's good.
It's very well done. It's just...
And also the cover fucks. Like, what more can you want?
Oh, you know, in sci-fi books, I appreciate a little bit more loose of a concept art cover, because it fits thematically.
I honestly like the Skyward pretty girl face covers. I'm like, that doesn't feel very sci-fi to me.
Yeah, because it's more YA.
Yeah,
you know? It's like
I understand, but I'm also like, this doesn't give.
Yeah, but the bad thing is the German edition sucks, and the new covers are... There's other covers that were, like, more illustrative, that are also fun. But it's Charlie Bowater. Like, I'm gonna get her covers.
Anyway.
Thank you so much for listening to us. We hope that you after you came back, after reading the book, you enjoyed this as much as we did. Yeah. And yeah, I'll definitely read the second one, and we can follow that up with a comment that goes like, or another video, you know, we never know.
We'll see.
We'll see. All right, bye-bye.
Goodbye.